like Stargates, crop circles. Stargates have an affiliated code with certain areas around the Bermuda Triangle, as well as certain areas in the Antarctica, as well by the wall, or maybe even over it, and as well as the pyramids too. Crop circles affiliated terms that have magnetic impulse streams created through higher elevated energies, or they had maintainment speeds because around those areas, those coordinates had moved up to creating an effect to give an encode out towards other mimetic speeds, so other human peripheral modes, so other entities. So they learn from that.
Everybody, welcome to episode 62. Blue, how are you?
I'm very well today, Mike.
Excellent. Hey, I know we're going to have a huge show today in 62. What are we going to talk about?
One of the things we'll be discussing about is the signal energy arcs, ley lines, distributed acted upon electromagnetized planetary control system, coordinated with Stargate geometry, as well as the conversion with ley lines itself. The energetic lines that act with certain replicated areas, including the trilateral platforms of Giza, including other areas in Stonehenge across the globe. And the conjuncture it points out to towards the middle of the actual planet, the fields of that.
Well, sounds like we got a lot to talk about, and we've talked about ley lines in the past, but I can't wait to dive into today's show on 62. Before we get started, though, please make sure you go ahead and like, subscribe, click on notifications, follow, all those fun words so you're notified when we post new material. We respond to people on the socials as well. You can always reach out to us on the socials. And of course, you could be part of the team here. Go ahead and check out the links for merch. You see the stylish shirt here that Blue and I are wearing. And it's interesting because past couple of shows, we've kind of matched. And we don't plan ahead of time. Like, I don't call you and say, hey, wear this shirt, or whatever. So that's interesting as well. Hey, let's get into it. Let's get right into 62.
Yes, the sacred junctions of the ley lines itself. Now, sacred junctions refer to their heightened spiritual energy and have drawn seekers, mystics, and pilgrims for centuries. Some prominent examples, like I said, the Giza pyramids of Egypt, the conic Stonehenge in England, which if we're going even further with that conjuncture itself is believed Stonehenge was built in a spot where 14 ley lines of energy converge. And once was a healing location for ancient people. It gets interesting with this because it runs into ancient civilizations. It runs into the hierarchies of the higher civilizations of terrestrials, and it also runs into the electromagnetical fields that propose with all these ley lines across the globe. We're digging in deeper to vortexes itself. What does that mean? Where does that go into this? Energy vortexes. They are found at the sacred sites. They are found in Machu Picchu in Peru. And we have discussed before about the extraterrestrial and alien entities that existed there underground. And they had burial chambers in certain areas of effect. Bali, Stonehenge, Nueral, Ayers Rock, and Australia. There are several other areas. Now, with the energy vortex, it believes that it moves in a spiral, moving up and down in a continuous motion in these certain areas of effect. And there is a major energy vortex line that goes straight down the perimeters of the middle of the planet itself, where the two equators hit.
You know, we're in a great position here because of where we live, and we take a lot of things for granted. And there's a lot of things that go on around the world that sometimes we get tunnel vision. And what you're bringing up is these ley lines, and I want to be clear. The most basic definition. This is similar to like what Tesla had talked about. This is similar to the ley lines are the same thing as where you can get power from the ground as well as this magnetism. Is that right?
It's like the main planetary grid system activation points. And these are the vortex energy points, and they hit on distributed scenes of effect. I mean, you think about people going into airplanes and they have to hit certain areas or go to certain areas, even when they're going across ocean perimeters, because there's also unaccessible areas. And one reason, because of unaccessible areas, is a hit off of two major of an electromagnetic disposition line or impulse stream. And it hits with these energy vortexes. Now we were thinking about certain areas in the ocean as it is, and what already hits all those higher electromagnetic field impulses and already knocks off aeroplanes, or it screws up electronical equipment in boats, receivers, and vessels.
You know,
this is a higher distribution. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say it's amazing to me because nowadays through science, where there's new science, I say new, it's in our lifetime, that says that using magnetism can heal pain. Now, I haven't experienced that yet. I haven't tried that. But I'm interested because we go around the world and we have friends in different countries and people that listen in different countries. If you are near one of these things that we're talking about, some sort of geographic point, Stonehenge, there's these places in Australia, what have you, please send us some information, send us some pictures, send us some video, whatever you want about your experience with these areas. I think that might be interesting to get some feedback. I see you got marked here this sacred geometry. Can you break down what sacred geometry is for people?
Yes. The geometry or geometrics that affiliate with the certain intervals or areas distributed across the lines of the planet itself in the outer hemisphere, and that connect the energy amplification lines that go into certain areas. And those geometric points, and if it did send you a map, they interlock with each other. And there are much more heightened status of amplification through these energy locks than others. And yes, some of these amplified locks go to government, secret government, or military facilities. Bermuda Triangle may or may not have a military facility, but we already know the advancements of the ancient Atlantis societies and maintainment codes that affiliate with that. High impulsive radars of amplified energy can help distribute things similar to what Nikola Tesla had, what was taken away and now it's hidden amongst mankind. And we're talking about the arcs already distributed across the planet.
You know, it's amazing because what I'm hearing you say is there's stuff and a lot of things that we talk about on this show that exist, that's out there, yet we may not know about it because it's been withheld. You can't handle that. Oh, public's heads will explode if everyone we release all this information. That's why we see information always dripped out. It's amazing to me that these technologies and these things do exist. We try to scratch the surface, but without, backing support from government entities and so forth, they're going to downplay all this stuff. They're going to act like it's no big deal. Is it possible? And we already know the answer to the question about the government, but here's my question. Is it possible that possibly some other entities, some other beings from other places, other times, what have you, use these ley lines to their advantage?
Yes, like Stargates, crop circles. Stargates have an affiliated code with certain areas around the Bermuda Triangle, as well as certain areas in the Antarctica, as well by the wall, or maybe even over it, and as well as the pyramids too. Crop circles affiliated terms that magnetic impulse streams created through higher elevated energies, or they had maintainment speeds because around those areas, those coordinates had moved up to creating an effect to give an encode out towards other mimetric speeds, so other human peripheral modes, so other entities. So they learn from that.
I see you have a note here about Pandora's box. Are these two things related?
Yep. Pandora's box is a bit different, and it deals with emotions of the gods or the entities, higher entities, but it's alleviated into several terms. One of the main terms of motion was the story meaning of when Prometheus stole fire from heaven, Zeus, the king of the gods, took vengeance by presenting Pandora to Prometheus' brother, Epimetheus. Pandora opened the jar left in her cure containing sickness. So Pandora was the name of an entity, a lady, a female. Her box was a jar. And in that jar, death and many other unspecified evils, which were then released into the world. Association closed the container, one thing was left behind, usually translated as hope. Though it could have the pessimistic meaning, deceptive expectation, but that is not as well intended. It is something on the motions of hope. When we're digging in deeper into the Pandora's box, we're thinking about a can of worms. You're thinking about things that have been released into the world, but there's still a slight margin of hope left behind that can be taken as a good advantage instead of a disadvantage among the difficulties and the challenges. Now, currently in the world, there's a lot of this going on. There's a lot of issues with the world. There's a lot of death. There's a lot of even pestilences to certain things, sicknesses, diseases. There's a lot of wars. There's even famines everywhere. But even through the catastrophic ordeals, just like this with the Pandora's box, there's a slight margin of hope would be opened up. But it must have to contain the evils that have been taken out of the world again. This is like, pushing up something that's on a slim margin, but there's still something there through those challenges.
It's amazing to me that a lot of things we talk about are in plain sight or common knowledge or mythology or a conspiracy theory or, whatever, rumor, speculation, unfounded statements, whatever. I find even in the most ludicrous ideas, even in the most crazy things, there's a line or an area of truth in that. So you can't hide the ultimate reality. Looking at the Google box here, Pandora's box is a metaphor for something that brings about great troubles or misfortune, but holds hope. In Greek mythology, Pandora's box was a gift from the gods to Pandora, the first woman on Earth. It contained all the evils of the world, which were released when Pandora opened the box. With that in mind, do you think this person, Pandora, this woman, the first woman on Earth, supposedly, The Bible tells us something different, but that's neither here nor there. Do you think we're in a different world if Pandora doesn't open that box?
Well, let's just say there's a lot of things going on with similar results happening now. But with that happening, there could be a way to open up that hope, that ray of light. But it takes an outstanding mind in motion to make it happen. And with the evils of the world the way they are, there has to be a foundation, a conjuncture of a law step forward and maintain it, and possibly push that existence of hope into more of a reality here now. There have been certain numerical timelines over that have similar results. There's so much bad going on, but then that margin of hope opens up and it makes everything good again.
As you're talking just now, I'm picturing what we always get back to. Okay, if you follow the show, there's a couple principles that always seem to reoccur, pop up, what have you. One of them is we usually can't go a show without talking about Musk or Tesla. We already accomplished that because we talked about Tesla and the ley lines. The next thing is these evil forces that we always talk about in not only on our planet Earth, but universally, a good versus bad. I'm picturing, as you talk about this further, I'm picturing the good versus evil that we have going on right now as we're getting ready to vote. And we do get a little political here, but at the same time, you need to open up your minds, folks, because a lot of people are ensnared in this MSM and only what they feed you to brainwash you into believing certain things, certain narratives and so forth. Is it possible that these good and evil forces are either using Pandora's box, or Pandora's box is a reflection of that constant battle between good versus evil?
That's a possibility. But even with that comes an equilibrium. One has to come in equilibrium. That's the laws and the foundations of life. You can't categorize everything and not have it maintained. You have to have maintained. You can't, you have to put peace and hope and light as an equal term when they're dealing with injustice, darkness, and evil. Otherwise, one will just get knocked off entirely, and it will screw everything up.
It's amazing that you say that because, again, I'm thinking you're keep bringing up injustice. Look at what's happened in this world in the past several years. Look at the injustice. Look at the interference. Look at the people that are trying to push a negative narrative forward while brainwashing everyone. And it's just, it's amazing to me that these things have always been around in some form or fashion, whether you call it mythology or reality. I see the next thing we're going to talk about here is NASA. What's going on with NASA?
NASA and the robotic snakes. Now, what goes on with NASA is they had team members from JPL test a snake robot called EELS at a ski resort in South Carolina mountain in February. Designed to sense environments in the solar system and be able to explore destinations. And what gets interesting is this is a versatile robot that will autonomously map, traverse, and explore previously inaccessible destinations. It's being put to test in NASA's Jet Propulsion laboratory. Now, by now, may or less already be out there and exploring the foundations of other exoplanetary systems. Maybe one of the reasons why NASA is able to get certain replicated pictures of things, to find out the fundamentals of the forces of life. And of course, hide things as well that are already living there, because humankind should already know that they're not the only ones here. So, how do you create a robot that can go places no one's ever seen before on its own? Well, they create a snake-like robot for traversing extreme terrain. So it has an AI augmented chip in it, and it's able to replicate certain speeds with that and able to take in the information and pictures and scenes of events through these planetary modes. It's a good thing. But we have a similar result of where they would have got that type of entity from, obviously underwater. But there are creatures out there that certain space explorers or astronauts may have seen that are more extraterrestrial or snake-like. We might get into that on another show.
It's amazing to me because a lot of people don't like snakes. You can go back to the 70s with Jim Stafford and the song, I Don't Like Spiders and Snakes. A lot of people are afraid of that. And I'm just picturing in my mind, an innocent person or person who's not aware of these things accidentally stumbles across one of these robotic snakes. I might think I'm looking at something extraterrestrial. I might think I'm looking at some sort of government secret program or what have you. And this isn't mainstream. A lot of things we talk about, folks, aren't out there in the mainstream. You have to do your digging and so forth. So, if we talk about these things and you choose to research these things, we're not offended by that. Please go ahead. That's the purpose of what we're doing. We're bringing these things. We try to keep it. People's attention spans are short. Nowadays, you have 30 seconds, a minute video or what have you. We try to keep it condensed so it's not long and drawn out. Trust me, we could talk for hours on any one of these topics. But the next thing that we talk about here is this military canines. Now, I've seen this in development and so forth behind the scenes. Tell me more about how we go from snakes to canines.
Well, in the intervening years, robot dogs have become an increasingly common fixture across the U.S. military, beyond patrolling sensitive installations. But there is also China as well that has been striking this and making an impulse for their own robotic military dogs, canines. There is a concern because they are just fighting with each other to see who will make it more. We'll grow more. The foundation's out there for that. But even with the development of these weaponized systems, there could be a good imposing strain to help protect mankind. And it has an augmented AI that would sensory mode to it, as well as urban assault drills alongside robot dogs. So they are being taught. That's good. But the only issue would be if we put too much of AI structure in, and then they end up turning. So alleviating the processing things, we want to protect each other, but we're going to have to go to a corporal standard where we're not pushing too much on an agenda of a war. Good can come to these robotic canines, but also bad can come through AI. So we have to pay attention to what we're doing with subsystems.
There's a couple things you mentioned there which automatically send up red flags or antennas in my mind here. One of them is China. And we know China, I always like the way Trump said China.
China.
I just love that. But what I'm trying to get at is, China's always in this competition with us, and I'm not convinced they're the good guys. You'd mentioned AI here, and it sounds like there's some disadvantages, and some assets. My thing is GIGO, GIGO. This is the first thing. Now, when I went to school in the early 80s, yes, I'm ancient, we didn't have the computer technology that we're talking about today. I'm talking about like 40, 45 years ago. So when you're first learning about computers, and this is before Windows and all this Google and all this stuff, when you first learned about computer, it's GIGO, GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. And we've seen that this year already, for the recent years, with responses from AI tools. You would put in something in the AI tool that's available, and you would get a slanted view. It's probably not it's probably not the view you adore or you embrace, or even reality. You could bring up things on AI and it'll show this DEI or this politically correct or this woke system I'm wondering how these canines and robots are interfered with by this slanted AI. I'm wondering if these are things that can be used against us as a culture, as a people, or as a country.
If they're built as a battlefield alignment code, yeah, obviously. But I mean, with all the battles, humans are going to have to come to the point of understanding they're going to have extremely low survival rate in the future if they keep this up. So basically, they decided they able to build the most autonomous remote killing machines that will win. Instead of humans working alongside AI to an advantage to Peace Corps means, they want to fight. They want to find means of fighting. They want to find means of hurting each other. This is not right. We can be beyond this. We can have more capabilities in this for the better. Let's celebrate that way.
Yeah, I look to guys like Elon Musk that can help lead the way in a positive way. He recently testified before Congress here, and it's funny because after he talked about what was going on with social media and control and censorship and so forth, this committee or consort of companies like that have been responsible for this super censorship and this super brainwashing that's going on. There's something called the Global Alliance for Responsible Media, GARM. Well, the day after or the same day that Musk testifies, guess what? It's gone. They're like, oh no, we're not even an organization. Now, first of all, this organization's platform didn't say that's what they're doing. It's always misdirection. It's always, oh yeah, we're doing this. Don't look over here. It's always that sort of thing with the evil forces or what have you. And I just hope and pray that we can get more people on track and following along with somebody like an Elon Musk. Here we go again. Musk, Tesla, every show. I've also heard that the robot, it's a popular theme in movies or what have you, that us embracing this robotics and AI, like it's always like the robots from the future, or maybe the aliens are from the future, or maybe these robots that we're going to be fighting is something that we created. And you can go back to past 20, 30 years, movies about robots that end up taking over or have this, they end up developing, the robots are creating more robots and creating their own technology and so forth. And it's just mind-blowing that we're at this point. Mind you, in the 80s, I thought I'd be in my flying car by now, but I would have never imagined that there was governmental control. You couldn't turn on the evening news and get the truth. I just find all this stuff fascinating, and I wish we had a lot more time to go into it. Are we ready to talk about the SCP Foundation?
Yes. SCP-469, the mini-winged angel. At first glance, SCP-469 appears to be a gargantuan pile of white feathers measuring 8.884 meters in diameter, weighing several tons. On closer inspection, however, subject is actually a vast area of enormous white avian wings, tightly curled up into a dense mouth. Each wing varies in size and span, ranging from a few centimeters to several meters, but are all covered with glossy white feathers, with obviously the entity in the middle. And what gets interesting with this entity is it feeds exclusively on sound and sound waves, using the energy gained from sound to grow newer and bigger wings and feathers. The cause of this is that if anything comes up to touch it, any human or animal that gets close to the surface of the creature will be quickly enveloped around by the outstretching wings and drawn inside. And despite the feather's soft appearance, each hair has a sharp point that quickly pierces through clothing and into the flesh itself, and releases a neurotoxin and immediately stimulates all the pain receptors in the body, as well as other stimulants to keep the victim from passing out, while they scream loudly, thus feeding the entity itself. Because its quickest way to get in nutrients is through sound. And the best way for it to get in nutrients is through melody sounds, including bells. Yes, it can be considered a hazard because it feeds on sound, but if entities get too close, it can hurt them. Well, that's the main problem posing. But there could be a way to alleviate that from happening and possibly pose a term to cooperating with the entity or finding more out about it.
Wow.
All termination methods have been unsuccessful too. They have tried to terminate the said species, but that obviously doesn't work. So they keep it capsulized in a certain foundation site.
You know, biblically, we're taught, or we have this preconceived notions that angels are always positive, angels are always good. A lot of people, especially if you haven't read the Bible, if you're not fully aware, Satan was an angel. He's a fallen angel. It sounds to me like this angel isn't very heavenly or very. It sounds to me like it's an evil type thing. Is this good guy or bad guy?
To be a fabricated force, creating havoc, but as well as inducing a celibacy speeds. Unless there may have been similar results through biblical standards, if it was objects or entities. But if bells are run, it makes it 10 times worse, and it'll suck in more of its power. This entity is probably just better staying neutral, like it is, and not being messed with, so they fundamentally find a way for a better communicative term. I mean, they have proposed writing or some type of communication, but that's only going so far.
Do you think that there's just one of these many winged angels, or do you think there's more than one?
Well, there's the gatekeeper. I'm sure we've discussed about that before. And that has many wings. There are several other types. There are archangels, different types of scepters of archangels that have several types of wings. And I don't think like they're the humanoid type that look like with the hair and everything. They're actually more of a higher terrestrial, so a symbiote gray mixed standard of a humanoid entity. But they can traverse from one area to the other, or move from one body to the other.
You know, it's amazing to me that we talk about these things, and for some reason, and this is just out there, I know, but you know, you inferred that the angel is extraterrestrial, like, and maybe that's just our perception, or maybe that's just how it's presented, or maybe that's just how they're presenting themselves to make it consumable, to make it something we can understand in a way. My question is, and I want to move on with our next SCP, but my whole thing is this: is if I see something like this, I should stay away, because as an angelic type feature, what I'm perceiving to be an angel, I'm thinking this is something I can embrace. But you're telling me that, no, I don't want to embrace this physically, literally, or what have you.
No, because it feeds on sound quality. And since humans and other entities possess some type of sound quality, it's going to feed on that. That's what its main nutrient is. If you run into that type of entity, I would just stay away. I would avoid it.
Tell me about our next SCP.
SCP-530, Carl the Variable Dog, which is connected to SCP-529. Now, SCP-530 appears to be a small dog in a constant state of physical alteration. Height typically varies between 20 centimeters. Width across the back typically varies between 7.5 and the length 25.5. Larger and smaller sizes have been recorded, but are rare and do not last long. So it mainly stays at the same size. The coat of SCP-530 is also in a state of constant change. To date, 467 different hues have been recorded out of the species. as well as an unidentified number of patterns. And the most extreme flux comes from the growth or absorption of additional limbs, noses, mouths, eyes, ears, and other body parts. Do not last longer than 24 hours, though, and a third eye, located slightly left to the center top of the head, has remained since approximately 1/2 hour after its discovery.
You know, it's curious.
It's a good dog.
It's curious to me that this is, you said there's like 467 different variables here, or different configurations. So it's the same physical entity, yet it keeps changing, it keeps evolving.
Yeah, and it'll grow extra limbs, extra eyes, or the colors of the coat will change, or even the imprints, which some of them are unknown.
What's the benefit behind it? What's the benefit behind it converting or changing or adapting or evolving?
Obviously, it was implemented as a scientific experiment at one time. And because of that, it goes through alterations. It may have been a mutagen, or something that is a mutant type of canine that alternates and changes. And it goes into the cat species next.
Please.
Well, with this dog, though, with this dog, they leave it on the lower facilities of the floor freely. So it's a good canine, not harmful, and is also free to interact with SCP-529, which is Josie the Half-Cat. This gets interesting. The Half-Cat 529, small house cat, gray tabby markings, parts of the anterior at the end of the ribcage appear to be missing. The body terminates sharply as if sliced in two. In spite of this, the animal has no health problems and moves about as if its hindquarters are still in place. And it isn't physically impossible, because we already have animals out there that have to learn to use certain limbs while they're walking. Canines, cats, dogs, even birds. I've seen birds walk around hopping on one foot in a pretty good balance at it. So with or without that, there are traversal ways. But going back to this, and sometimes after feeding the animal makes motions as if to void itself of waste matter.
That was my next question, because I'm looking at this thing,
yep.
And I'm like, wow, I don't need a litter box.
So there is an inanimate dimensional wavelength that proacts with the subspecies. So that possibly could pose that matter could be moving elsewhere teleportation-wise, or just reducting off from itself from there. And the particles are simulated so no one can actually see it, and it just dissipates. Now, when you're looking at the cross-section, it does not display the interior of the canine either. It's just pure black. Just a pure black to the eye. It absorbs all known visible wavelengths of light. But when someone starts gently stroking of the area, though, it sometimes yields a positive reaction. But usually leads the creature to turning on the agent and scratching at them. The scratches have experienced no abnormalities, though. So it doesn't like the area being touched. So just like the canine, they may have been similar with each other. They may have been cousins. They may have been manufactured with the same type of scientists. But they get along with each other, and they're both held in the facility itself.
Awesome. I love it when we talk about the SCP. What do we have to report from the Space Force and the Federation?
Obviously, how Biden turned the tables over to Ms. Harris about things, and the media denying that she was ever the border czar. It's interesting. POTUS asked me to lead our diplomatic work with Mexico, El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras to address the situation at the southern border. Okay, address what situation, hon? You know, we have to address the root causes of migration. I don't see that happening. And it won't be easy work. Well, what won't be easy work when you guys are motivating a lot of nonsense everywhere. And she says, but it's necessary. I don't see it necessary. My concern is this, and when it goes even deeper, Mayor Adams' attempt to stop buses and migrants from arriving in New York City rejected by state Supreme Court. The New York State Supreme Court has ruled against Mayor Eric Adams' attempt to block migrant buses from arriving, as if we already have a lot of people coming in and out consistently. This is getting too out of control. Now, and Miss Harris, she says she's working on this border crisis stuff I do not see. And if they want to maintain things better, where is it? All I see is everything scattered, everything scattered, everywhere, nonsense. And having her put, Kamala Harris put Tim Walz to be her running mate. Now, here's Tim Walz smiling as he signs the law that provides driver's license for illegal aliens in Minnesota. How many car wrecks, even here in West Palm Beach, and other unsustained motives have happened because they're allowing people coming here and they don't have any lawful standards or maintainment codes. We at least need to maintain it. Or they having people not knowing what they're doing, and it's causing more of a wreck everywhere. There is no law. There's no justice. There's nothing pushing things on a rightful system.
Just a couple things come to mind as you're mentioning these things. Number one, I can tell you the root cause of the border crisis and the stuff that's going on at the border. The root cause is when you're running for the presidency for 2020, you tell the world to come now.
I would, in fact, make sure that we immediately surge to the border. All those people are seeking asylum. They deserve to be heard. That's who we are. We're a nation that says if you want to flee and you're fleeing oppression, you should come.
This is what we want, okay? The next thing is the Biden seemed to work for them well. So now it's Harris. See, these people can't discuss things like 45 can. They can't have a press conference. They can't answer legitimate questions from a legitimate press corps. They got to go with the MSM with, what's your favorite ice cream? Instead of talking about what's important in this world. So it fascinates me that this is going on. This is a real thing. And it's disappointing more than anything. And I can't wait for 45 to get back in the office and take corrective action. It always seems to stink of, in my mind's eye, of they create a problem and they just happen to have the cure. Look at the Inflation Reduction Act. Does nothing to reduce inflation. You look at the Green News scam. Does nothing. All it does is feed people, redistribute money, and make political people wealthy. Catch on, folks. If you don't see the hypocrisy that's before your very eyes on a daily basis, you're missing the bigger picture. You're not going to see or hear a lot of these things through mainstream media. So we're thankful you're joining us. Our mission here is to get the word out.
One more thing concerning Elon Musk and Neuralink. Second Neuralink implemented. Second trial with the patient. Success. And also maintain that billionaire Elon Musk said that humans with his company's Neuralink and then possibly other companies maybe in the near future, the brain chip installed, but hopefully we could self-diagnose what we had discussed about with neural tech being an alteration, so that way it's not messing it up. But regardless, install will be nailing 360 no scopes better than the pros within 2 years, meaning that the AUI, the AI agents, and Neuralink itself will be able to speed up the human's progressive brain forms so they're able to work alongside AI better and be able to self-augment their transitional speeds to motivational techniques that they have lost before. There have been times over that humans, we've discussed about this before, had something similar in the past through advanced civilizations and help with higher terrestrials. Could there be a pro to this? Yes. Could there be a con to it? Yes. The con to it would be if not maintained proper and the distributors decide to take a turn of any stance, whether it's this company or some other kind, it could cause a big problem and impact upon humankind. But if it linked up proper and is maintained and there's a diligence to motivating the mind, as well as nanotechnologies and the particles that connect with neurons itself, positive outcome. And generally motivating humans to be able to move forward with themselves, to upgrade, to evolve, move forward. That's the main thing.
It's again, Musk. I'm thankful Musk is around. He seems to be a good guy here, but I'm just wondering if he can fend off the evil forces, if you would. I mean, it's just amazing to me that this guy's a warrior for us, and I'm very thankful. Let's talk about ET of the week.
Yeah, ET of the week, the InnerLands Extraterrestrial, the Niverhet extraterrestrial elven mixed races generated by humanoid gray biomolecular factors, centered mainly through hollow Earth bases, and their coexistence received during several clans of species. So the indicators could go through a mix of certain gray species on the outer servers, the outer dimensions. Timid and mainly stays away from mortals, unless the incubation nodes deals with certain perimeters of facilitated government or military agents that maintain the inner Arcturian realms. X-class radars routine scout space clean reservoirs and basins around living habitats, where they mainly stay at. Body has living intact DNA foliage organisms that generates living tissues itself. Kind of like Groot from Guardians of the Galaxy. A little bit similar. But there's major distributions that are not. Body has living intact DNA foliage. Herbivores that live on, so they are herbivore, they live on microorganism agents that are situated amongst bioluminescent materials. Fungi and special plant life. Exceeds in an advanced telepathic connection and camouflage. They're timid creatures, they're not evil, but they're very and highly intellectual, especially with the evolving forms of the inner realms and the higher societies of other dimensions.
You had mentioned a few key things there, and one of the things you had mentioned, not only first off, the bioluminescence. We're fortunate we both reside in Florida, and the bioluminescence. There's every time the new moon comes out, you can go on certain bodies of water, and you can experience the bioluminescence in the waterways on the new moon. I had an opportunity to do this recently, and unfortunately, we had to cancel out because of the recent storms and the storm weather that we encountered. But as soon as I can, I'm going to get out and maybe I'll provide some video of the experience through the bioluminescence. It's going to be on the eastern shore here of Florida that I do that. My question then is, if these creatures are from an inner realm or somewhere like Agartha, are these creatures more likely to be exposed or come out during the new moon? Is there a pattern, you think?
And they could come out through certain crevices or caverns or oscillated wavelengths, but they have a mix of a gray within them. So they do exist from other dimensions as well. There are ports and or portals that go to hyperwave modes underneath the realm or certain areas of effect across the planet that could incorporate several entities in and out of this perimeter.
You had mentioned that it's a fungi, and my last question, a question I always ask, good guy, bad guy, or fun guy?
Well, like I said, they're timid creatures, and the cooperative levels may come into some governments and some military agents on the psyoptic affair. They do tend to stay away from mortals, though. They would never exceed into harming apertures. So they are more of a sequence and code of a positive outlet.
Wow. And just like that, time has escaped us. We've filled it all. Great stuff today in 62, Blue. I look forward to 63.
Yes, thank you, Mike.